And this is the game plan for the New York Giants versus the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. If you're new to the show, I'll break down quickly the key injuries, the key stats, the key analytics. I call those gambler stats, and also put together a path to victory for the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are basically favored in this game. The Giants are the underdogs, but this is the NFL. Anybody can win any week, and I'll tell you how each team can win this game and should win this game if they want to win this game. Then at the end, I will bring RoccoBot, my daily fantasy football projector engine, basically a little algorithm I built to project fantasy football stats, daily fantasy football stats, and we'll bring him on at the end of the show to project the key player stats here. Before we get rolling, as we always say, 2 seconds of your time for 2 clicks, a like and a subscribe. That stuff, that engagement from you really, really helps us out. Please help us continue to grow our channel by liking, subscribing, commenting. If you agree, disagree, I'd love to hear it. So let's go ahead and start, as I always do, with the key injuries here. We got the Giants. You have Daniel Jones out. That's the big news. Eli Manning will start. You have Evan Ingram. You have Rhett Ellison, both graded as out as of the time of this recording. So Caden Smith is going to be stepping in at tight end. And then, left tackle Nate Solder over there. That's not great to have him out, but he's only questionable at this point, so hopefully he can play if you're a Giants fan. Now, for the Eagles, you have Jordan Howard, questionable. Nelson Aguilar, questionable. You got Lane Johnson, questionable. Burnett, questionable. Basically a little bit of defense, a little bit of offense, all questionable here, but the key is they're all questionable, no outs. So that's good to see if you're an Eagles fan. Now let's talk about the key stats here. I always put position group next to position group, and you can see quickly Giants passing offense 20th. I do think that they'll play better with Eli Manning back there against the 18th ranked passing defense for the Eagles. Conversely, the pass offense for the Eagles is 18th versus the 24th passing defense. What does that mean? That means I think that we'll see a lot of over-the-top play calls. I think Eli Manning and Carson Wentz will both be taking shots down the field, and that will be a very exciting thing to watch. If you like watching teams below 500 battle it out on Monday Night Football. But run defense for the Eagles, 4th, obviously the strength of their team. I love any defense that can stop the run. The Giants, even with Saquon Barkley, 23rd, not great, right? And Saquon was out for a long while, but he really hasn't come back and put up those crazy numbers like we're used to seeing, or at least we thought we would see from him this year. But that's not to say that's a bad thing for Saquon Barkley. It's a bad thing for fantasy football owners out there that are counting on him to be a stud each and every week. But I think he'll actually have a better game this week once again with Eli Manning in there. I think he's going to have a statistical uptick this week, even against the tough Eagles defense. We'll talk about that later. Run offense for the Eagles, 13th versus the 21st ranked running defense for the New York Giants. So if I'm looking at this across the board, you see nothing but 20s for the Giants. At least the Eagles, get up into the teens when you get and even the top 5 there for the running game, offensively and defensively. Nothing below 18 for the Eagles. If you look at this just purely from a statistical point of view, the Eagles have the advantage, and you would expect that to be the case. Now, let's look at the key analytics. Long story short, it measures yards per play, both offensively and defensively. Key situational football, 3rd and 4th downs. Your ability, once you get in the red zone, to get a touchdown instead of a field goal chance. And then, how many turnovers, how many stupid penalty yards do you take in a game? So if we look at this just yards per play, I actually think this is going to be pretty darn close to a wash here. I think Eli is just going to be a little bit better because he's more mature of a quarterback at this point. Now, you might get evil Eli. You might get Jekyll and Hyde, the Hyde version of Eli, or is it Jekyll? I don't know, the bad one. And, Eli might come out there and throw like 3 interceptions. You don't know, but I tend to think that he's going to have this weirdly good game. Again, I don't have anything to project that. It's just my gut. I think he's going to have a good game, and he's going to make things a little bit more uncomfortable for Philadelphia. But 5.0 yards per play, I think Eli will help there. The Eagles' defense giving up 5.5 yards per play. That's always coming in through the air. So if their defense, specifically their secondary, can hopefully lock things down for the Eagles, then I think they'll do quite well. Now, offensively, yards per play, the Eagles 5.1. They need to do better than that. It took them a while to get the ground game going. Miles Sanders is starting to play better, so there you go. Defensively for the New York Giants, 5.8 yards per play given up. That leans more towards the Eagles, but like I said, the Eli Manning factor, if he can have a good game and give this offense some juice, that might be a wash. Situationally, however, I actually like the Eagles a little bit more. You see they're in the 40s in terms of 3rd down conversion, whereas the Giants' offense is only converting about 37%. Meanwhile, the defense for the Eagles is better than the defense for the Giants. You look at 4th downs, the numbers are a little bit better on the Giants side, especially because the Eagles are giving up about 2/3 of 4th down conversions. So at the end of the game, if the Giants can keep it close, it might be interesting, when the Giants are in 4-down territory. We'll see how that goes. Red red zone percentage there, you see the Eagles are at 63%, the Giants only at 53%. Again, I would think a little bit more improvement from the Giants. I think those numbers will be closer. Turnover margin, both teams in the negative. That's not good. And then, penalty yards actually at 55, that's pretty reasonable. So not too bad there. Let's talk about the path to victory for the New York Giants, though. The Giants facing the number 4 run defense in the league. I don't think Saquon Barkley between the tackles is the recipe here. I think they're going to have to move him out, run him off tackle, which the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line and basically their front seven is going to be very good to defend that. But I'd like to see him involved a little bit more in the screen pass. Now, Philadelphia is also good at that, but they have to involve Saquon Barkley. I think that's the best thing, just not between the tackles. Philadelphia's pass defense has improved as of late. But Eli, man, take those shots, man. You got Sterling Shepard, you got Golden Tate, you got Darius Slay. Caden Smith isn't bad filling in at tight end, and of course you have Saquon Barkley. So you can sneak Barkley out on those wheel routes up the sideline. I think that is the key matchup. Barkley deep. You got to use him to move the chains and keep in manageable situations. But I think you're going to find some mismatches, wheel routes with Saquon Barkley. Turnover margin just bad for the Giants. Need to fix that. Obviously, I mean that's not earth-shattering advice for the New York Giants. Hold on to the stinking ball. Eli Manning, we have to have good version of Eli Manning. Can't have bad version of Eli Manning in this game, obviously. And then lastly, if they can keep the game close, I was mentioning this before, I like their ability to kind of push the ball. And this Giants team, they have experience playing from behind. They have experience going for it on fourth down. So from an adversity, that's kind of something they're used to. So if the Giants can just hang in there, they're going to be a dangerous team in the fourth quarter. Now, I think Philadelphia wins, but this spread with Eli playing quarterback, not to say I'm going to bet it because I won't, but I tend to think the Giants are going to upset in terms of the spread. I think they'll lose maybe by, let's call it 5 to 7 points, somewhere in that touchdown margin. More than a field goal, but less than a 2-score game, I think. And so I actually like the Giants to cover, but please feel free to disagree. Now let's look at the path for the Eagles. They are the favorites as well. They should be. They don't have a deep passing threat, so it's all about Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz kind of moving the chains. Nelson Aguilar, can you count on him in key situations to secure a tough catch? I don't know. I think they're going to try to take a couple of deep shots at Alshon Jeffery, but if they can't and they haven't been able to find a deep threat now, of course it was supposed to be Deshaun Jackson. Well, they're going to have to move the chains and kind of go to what I would call the NFL version of small ball. Miles Sanders out of the backfield, try to run somebody up the middle, whether it's Sanders, Howard plays, Ajayi, or somebody like that. And then, of course, have your tight ends moving the chains, and I think that's what the Eagles have done the last few weeks, and I think that's what they will continue to do. Be ready for the deep ball. The Giants are going to throw as well they should. Eli Manning is going to be there. Be ready. It's coming. And that gives Philadelphia, if you have ball hawkers out there, that gives Philadelphia opportunities to flip the field, which is really nice. Philadelphia has the advantage in both yards per play, and I mentioned third down conversion percentage. I do think that margin will be a little bit thinner, but basically if they can extend a lead earlier, put some pressure on the Giants to throw the ball, that's only going to help that turnover margin as well. So I think Philadelphia can do that, especially with their strong run defense, make them one-dimensional. I like what it has there. Now the turnover margin is in the negatives, which I don't like, but it's still about a full possession better than the Giants because they've been so bad. I do think that they can play more of a conservative game. Like I said, I'd like to see the Philadelphia Eagles taking about a 10-point lead into the fourth quarter. If it's within a possession there, that's not good. So Philadelphia, they need to show up. They need to get out to a quick start. They need to basically try to take Saquon Barkley's running ability out of the game early, make everything go on Eli Manning's shoulders, and take your chances in being able to force some turnovers. Now let's finish this episode out with some daily fantasy analytics here. We have Eli Manning projected at a 19.7, which is a start grade, actually. Now, would I start him in my fantasy football lineup? Probably not. But I like him maybe with some rotation or stacks with Sterling Shepard in daily fantasy. I think that's a good play. Saquon Barkley projected at a 12.5. I think Barkley will be worth more. I think he'll get more catches this week if you're in a PPR league. I like him to definitely exceed this. Wayne Gallman, not so much. I do like Golden Tate. And Darius Slay, he's right on the fringe of starting for me, but I think it's not Darius Slay. I actually like Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard a bit more this week. I mentioned that I like Caden Smith. He's been playing well with Ellison and Ingram out. And if he indeed, on Monday Night Football, he plays and he's the starting tight end, I think he'll get you some opportunities there. And then the defense and special teams for the Giants, I will stay away. Now, for the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz projected at a 21. I like that projection. Jordan Howard projected at a 7. I think that's fair. Miles Sanders, 13.3. I think that's fair. I think those are very good projections. Now, Alshon Jeffery, 19.5. Again, I like that. that. But what worries me is you look at these projections from Nelson Aguilar, 7.9. I actually went to 2 tight ends instead of a third receiver because, Arcega-Whiteside and these other guys were projected so low. I just didn't think they were relevant. The interesting thing is my RoccoBot likes Dallas Goedert more than Zach Ertz to score a touchdown this week. Now, I was surprised to see that. Do I agree with that? No. I think Zach Ertz will probably have the better game. But again, this is computer projections. I don't always agree with them. Very interesting there. So when I'm playing daily fantasy, especially if I'm going like a Monday Night Football matchup or something like that, I might buy Dallas Goedert because I think he'll be less expensive. And then defense and special teams, I think the Eagles will do quite well. There's always the opportunity to get interceptions from Mr. Eli Manning. There's always the opportunity to get him sacked. So I think the Eagles will get a nice amount of bonus points, the 1-2 point sacks depending on what your league is. So I like him there. Anyway, that takes me through an episode of the Game Plan Monday Night Football. Please once again like, subscribe, comment, and we'll be back on another episode soon. Thanks.